Welcome back, everyone, to the next installment of Chaos Child. We're going to go to the final showdown, if we can. Also, I've been thinking, I kept saying that Serika's been bringing us into danger by getting us involved in this case, but I also have to wonder, maybe she has some sort of mental block imposed by Sakuma to prevent her from telling us that it is Sakuma, so maybe she's been doing her best to try to lead us in that direction, but she has to be extremely indirect, which really sucks, because each time we don't get it right, she has to kill somebody else. Also, look at the right of the screen. Starbricks Coffee. So close. In any case, let's go.
Hi.
Shinjo said, mostly to himself from the driver's seat. The Shibuya intersection was overflowing with people. They were all looking up at the footage of Memorial Park being displayed on the big TV screens. The time was 10:21 p.m. 7 minutes until the time when the earthquake began 6 years ago. I have 7 minutes to play with you. When the time arrived, there would be a moment of silent prayer and the festival would reach its finale. Everyone at the festival seemed to be heading for the park or the intersection in front of the station to participate. I could see a man who looked like a member of the city council on the screen. From the subtitles, he seemed to be giving a speech about the restoration project.
まただ。頭を下げろ。はい。
We should really probably always have our head down. Shinjo had gotten this car just to take us out of Shibuya. The windows were tinted, so I didn't have to worry about anyone seeing me. But there was no way to hide from anyone looking at me from the front. Just in case, I kept myself as far down in the space below the seat as I could. Alright. We'd run into a lot of roadblocks once we'd entered this area, with the volunteer staff stopping us from going forward. Each time Shinjo had shown his police notebook and explained that this was a police car, and each time they'd let us through. But that meant that it was taking twice as long as usual.
ギリギリ。というか、28分には間に合わんかもしれないぞ。
Shinjo said as he slowly weaved the car through the crowds of people.
いえ、送っていただくだけでありがたいです。
I never would have made it to the Hikariwa on my own.
時間を過ぎれば、佐久間と鉢合わせする可能性は高くなる。それでも行くんだな。はい。
I could see Shinjo's face in the rearview mirror. He'd put his fingers up to the bridge of his nose, and his expression was pained.
警察官としては最悪の行為だ。命の危険があるところに未成年を送り届けるなんてな。佐久間がシアターキューブにいるのなら一緒に乗り込んで拘束したいくらいだ。だが今の俺では佐久間の犯行を何も証明できない。
I mean, he can control people's minds. You're not arresting him.
上層部にも圧力がかかっている。まるで安物の刑事ドラマだな。委員会っていうのはそんなに強い権力を持ってるんですか？詳しいことはほとんど誰も知らない。いや、知った者は闇に葬られてきた。
I mean, considering that Sakuma is a low-tier employee, I'd say it's pretty damn powerful. Irritated, Shinjo swerved the car around a group of pedestrians that were standing in the middle of the street. I ducked down so I couldn't be spotted from outside. It was a little cramped. 昼間言ってた新庄さんの先輩もですか? I remembered him talking about that. About how this case was his way of avenging a detective he respected a lot. I'd forgotten about that. Shinjo ignored me and kept looking forward. I felt like his silence was a yes. なんだ? I mean, it's getting to 10:28. People are probably just calling for me in general. Shinjo lowered the window just a crack to hear what was going on outside. Yeah, there you go. In front of us, by the side of the road, was a van advertising the Restoration Festival. A group of people had climbed on top of it. They must have been college-aged, and they were holding beers in their hands. Hearing them or even seeing them was upsetting. I leaned back into the seat, closed my eyes, and lowered my head again.
久野里さんもたまにそう言うな。
Shinjo closed the window and started to drive away from all the commotion.
情弱、情報弱者の略だったか。
That's what the kids are saying these days? I watched all the drunks pass by the other side of the tinted windows.
彼らは知らないし、知ろうとしないんです。自分たちが煽ってる相手のことも、その相手がどんな気持ちなのかも。
Or what the people they're talking about are going through. Violence, murder, the darkness in the human heart. They think they understand these things because they read or hear about them, but they don't ever think about what they must really be like.
君は会った時から知るという行為にこだわっていたな。
I mean, what Miyashiro never seems to understand is that wrongsiders don't think they're wrongsiders, or they're convinced they're right. Miyashiro himself started this game doing the case because it was interesting. Like, oh, we'll get a scoop if we find this dead body, and Kurusu had to call us out. Like, so, what do you think of that, Miyashiro? It's all fun and games till it happens to someone you know. The first time I met Shinjo was... It was a scolding, right? When he, met us at the Love Hotel, right?
ラブホテルの事件の時だ。君たちが勝手に現場に入り込んでいた。
When you say on your own, I mean, well, they did pick up Sarika, right? He was right. Shinjo was the one in charge of that case, and that's how we'd met.
これから尾上に会おうとしているのも何かを知るためなんだろう。
はい。
I had to know what Sarika was really after, and the real reason she'd come into existence. Well, hopefully we get to her before she dies. We're probably going to get to her just as she dies.
そうか。言ってみれば、自分のことを知るためなんだ。
What had I wanted during the earthquake? What wish had created her? I realized for the first time that I was trying to find out more about myself than Sarika.
先輩もそんな人だったよ。
I looked in the rearview mirror again. Shinjo was still watching the traffic in front of him.
とにかく知ろうとすることに対して貪欲な人だった。そのためなら世間の常識も警察の理屈も関係ない。よく百瀬さんに怒られていたらしい。突っ走りすぎだって。
そうだったんですか。
Shinjo's voice took on a strangely different character. His tone changed from one of nostalgia to one of sorrow.
そして先輩は突っ走りすぎた。
That was the answer to his silence before, too. Had he been killed by the committee?
先輩の最後を俺はよく知らない。ただ先輩は満足だったろう。少なくとも後悔はしていないはずだ。でもな、だからといって先輩の死を認めるわけにはいかない。俺は先輩に追いつけなかったし、止めることもできなかった。俺は悔しいんだ。クルス・ノノさんがここにいればきっと同じように感じるはずだよ。君のこと。
I fell silent. There was nothing I could say. But I was truly glad that he was the one who read Nono's letter, and that he was the one who was helping me. When I reached the Hikariwo, I realized that something was wrong. It was too quiet. Normally, even at this hour, the Hikariwo would be fairly noisy, but it was completely silent. There were no murmurs, no drunken shouting like I'd heard just a moment ago.
始まっちまったか。
I checked the time. 10:27. No, it's 10:28, alright. Everyone had gathered in front of Memorial Park or the TVs in front of the station for a silent prayer. Shinjo switched the car's navigation system to TV mode. It was displaying footage of the Memorial Park. I saw the ceremony and gasped. All the sound was gone from Shibuya. It was like a movie set. Suddenly I was struck by a terror even greater than before. It felt like the moment of silence was for me, as I headed to my death. I forced myself to smile and tried to tell myself that I was shaking from excitement, not fear. My mind was a confused jumble of thoughts. Half of me wanted to go home and half of me wanted to stay, but I forced myself to keep going. That's right. I have to know, no matter what. Shinjo tossed something at me.
何ですかって、これ。
I felt the sensation of rubber as I grabbed it. I tried to spread it out and stopped.
皮肉な話だが、手近にこれしかなかった。我慢してくれ。
いえ、ありがとうございます。
I lowered my head in thanks. There were still people standing between me and the theater cube.
すまないな。俺はここまでだ。ウキ君たちをそろそろ。
He looked at his watch.
分かってます。急いで彼女たちを秋葉へ。お願いします。
送り届けたら、俺はすぐに戻ってくる。死ぬなよ。
I mean, it's gonna be a while before you get back, dude. Somebody will be dead by the time you're back.
はい。
I wiped my sweaty hands off on my pants and nodded. Then I took a deep breath to calm myself down. I put on the sumo sticker mask that Shinjo had given me, that's what that was, and stepped out into a Shibuya utterly without sound. The silent prayer was continuing, and this was my chance. Several people looked at me as I got out of the car, but they must have been used to seeing the people in the masks. They quickly lost interest and lowered their heads once more. Where's the best place to hide a leaf? The forest. Everything was fine. They hadn't figured out who I was. I looked up at the Hikariwa building, which towered above me like some kind of fortress. The people around me all seemed suspicious, but I made it to the theater floor without anyone saying anything. But then I realized that something was wrong and stopped. I mean, we're late. There was no one on this floor. There were no customers, and not even a single employee. Even the convenience store, which was open during the festival, was empty. I took off the mask. My field of vision restored, I took another look around the floor. I was right. It was completely empty. There was no sign of Serika or Dad either. The whole soundless space in front of me felt like a trap that I just walked into. Maybe because it was a trap that you just walked into. What the hell did you think this was going to be? I'd taken the mask off, but it still hurt to breathe. I tossed the mask into one of the decorative trees nearby and slowly started to walk across the floor. Every shadow scared me. Each time I reached a blind spot, I would stare at it a moment before I proceeded. Ugh, too real. Where was the entrance to the theater? When I found the stairs and escalator, I felt a wave of nostalgia. This was where I'd come with the rest of Aoba dorm. That's right. I'd gone up the stairs and into the theater. Oh? I flinched as the escalator started to move. It was just a motion detector. I knew that. But the machine seemed to be pulling me deeper into a trap. Because it is. I mean, Sakuma did straight up invite us here to get killed. You know this is coming. I looked up to the top of the escalator. There was no one there. I smacked my trembling legs with trembling hands and then slowly went up the stairs. This was the path that led to the theater, and it was probably leading me to the finale that either Dad or Serika had prepared for me. And I was probably doing exactly what one of them wanted. Or both of them. But I had to find Serika and the answer, and there was no way that desire was in anyone's script. It was my own, I thought. I had to find out the truth, for Nono's sake as much as my own. I went up to the entrance of the theater and put my hand on the heavy door. Flash of red? Sounds like someone's adjusting dials on a TV or a radio. A transmission sound? I felt a stabbing pain in my head the second I went inside. I staggered and leaned against the back of a nearby chair. I forced myself to endure the pain and look around the theater. The theater was done up in the modern style, with stadium seating. The stage was at the lowest point in the hall, and the seats got higher up the further you went away, so it would be easier for the audience to see. The entrance was at the far back, behind the seats. When I looked down, I could see the whole room. The stage was completely empty. There were no props or backgrounds. The lights were focused on the stage, so the rest of the theater was dark and hard to see. The seats seemed empty too. So the lights are on. Still, this is eerie. Partly eerie because the lights are on, but I admit I expected something to be on the stage. I couldn't see anyone. I couldn't hear any movement either. My first suspicion was Dad's mind control power, but if his power worked like ours, that meant he would need to share his delusions with me in order to real boot them. That is a good point. Like, what if I look away or something? In other words, if what I was seeing was due to mind control, Dad must be watching me from somewhere nearby. I suddenly got an idea and looked through my pockets. I found the lollipop that Kazuki had given me. We are bringing back the lollipop. I tossed it up and imagined it floating in the air. But instead of floating, it fell down into the thin row between the seats. Okay, implying that no one was around to see it to make it work. That's pretty clever, actually.
Yosh.
I sighed with relief, satisfied with what I'd seen. Are we going to get it back, though? It was impossible for us to use our powers alone. If my psychokinesis wasn't working, it meant there was no one here. But I still kept my guard up as I walked toward the stage. If I remembered right, this place hadn't changed since the last time I was here. Come to think of it, if I'd come here to celebrate my acceptance to Hekiho Academy, it had only been 2.5 years since I'd last been here. It didn't seem real. It felt like so much more time had passed. Everything had changed. No one knew we were gone. Yuto had probably left his home and was on his way to Akihabara with Shinjo right now. And Dad... I heard something. Suddenly I heard a sound behind me and spun around. Standing there was... I'm genuinely surprised. I mean, she's here and alive. She looked just like she had when I'd seen her this morning. Not only was she not hurt, there were no signs that she'd even fought. What? Alright. Sarika waited for the door she'd come through to close and then slowly walked towards me. Is this an illusion somehow? 'Cause Sarika definitely did not sound good. I mean, we could argue she was faking it over the phone, the sound of being hurt, but from her perspective, she was definitely hurt. So,
なぜここにいる?
Her voice was quiet but angry. She probably thought that I'd left Shibuya.
父さんは
死んだよ。
No. That can't be right. Arimura's not here, so she can lie and I cannot tell. That's probably what's happening.
舞台裏に頭だけ転がっている。半分潰れていて分かりにくいがな。
What? The look on my face must have been ridiculous. Sarika's voice was completely calm, and it was hard to believe she was lying. But the fact that she's not hurt, though, that's driving me crazy. Dad was dead? This has to be a lie. She's being compelled to say this. There is just no way.
お前が殺したのか?
The only thing that bugs me is her being patched up. Even if this is a lie, how did she get fixed up? Her nod silently said, "Of course I did."
それで、なぜここにいるんだ? 久野里美桜たちはどうした?
Maybe I should not be specific in my answer. They're somewhere else. It'll be fine. How could she be so calm after killing someone? I don't know, ask her the other 6 or 7 times. It was terrifying to see how unconcerned she was. My thoughts, feelings, and even my words were a jumbled mess, but I managed to tell her that Shinjo had taken them all out of Shibuya by now. And then I told her why I'd come.
お前、どうして電話であんなこと言ったんだよ?
What? Tell you what on the phone? I never called.
僕に何を望まれて生まれてきたんだよ。
Sarika looked at me as if she was staring at something very dear to her. Huh. I knew this feeling. Sarika was reading my mind. That's not good. Suddenly it appeared. Its design was far too complicated and intricate to be called a sword. It was sharp like metal, but it had a strange luster that was all its own. It was a D-sword, big enough to cover Sarika's entire upper body. It was what she'd used to kill Nono. The organ music? The JRPG final boss music? What is this? Beyond her blade, I could see a slight change in her expression. Yeah, she's smiling now. It was the same look I'd seen before when she was talking about Dad, as if she hated everything she saw. I'm not really getting that vibe from this picture, but alright. Just like that? Just as she jumped, I felt a burning heat in my right shoulder and fell to the ground. A moment later, I felt a pain like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I grabbed my shoulder with my left hand and felt something nasty, warm, and sticky. It was blood. I'd been cut. If I'd reacted even a moment later, she would have chopped my entire shoulder off. Oof. That's something I never really think about. Chopping off a shoulder. I looked up. Sarika was already bringing her blade down. I forced myself to twist out of the way, ignoring the blood spurting from my shoulder. This time the pain was in my left leg. I ignored it too, trying my best to get away. If you're gonna use that lollipop weapon, dude, now's your chance. Here's a question. Considering that you can summon a D-sword, do you think it would make a difference if I tried pulling hers away? Could she just re-summon it? Like a Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts? You just try to swing it and it comes back to you? Sarika walked over to me, slowly. I must have bit something in my mouth when I rolled, because I tasted something bitter and metallic. Oh, what do you think it was? What? Sarika stopped, close enough to strike me with her D-sword, and began to speak. Okay, why? That's not a good thing to hear, considering her speech for a long time has been how she exists solely to keep me alive. No way. That's why she was going to kill me? What, to prevent me from being mutilated? Unless she means different victims. Just like she killed Nono with that D-sword? The pain from the cuts kept me from thinking, and the blood loss drained away my will to resist. I couldn't feel my left leg anymore, but I couldn't stop looking at Sarika. I wasn't sure. Were there any important blood vessels around the calves? Ooh, good question. I think there's one on the upper leg, but I don't know about calves. Man, that's not a good thing to hear right now. Sarika swung the D-sword at me. If I'm gonna summon mine, now's the time. And then I felt something burst within me. What? Is this the normal end? No, wait. I leapt at Serica. I reached out my hand without thinking and felt something warm and rough. What's that sound? Like clicking. Did you hear that for a little bit? What is this? I heard her scream in my ears. What? By the time I had realized, I'd reached into the cut in her stomach and ripped out the stitches. Oof, that's what that was? I was already on top of her. That's brutal. I mean, I know we're desperate, but damn. Her D sort of disappeared. My hand went for her neck. Wow. My fingers dug into her flesh. The only thing I saw was the red color dripping down the base of her neck. Brutal. Was it my blood from when she'd cut my shoulder, or hers when I ripped open her stomach? Or had my nails broken the skin on her neck? Whatever it was red and it was spreading. I couldn't stop myself from gripping tighter. My fingers dug deeper and deeper, and the soft sensation of her skin began to recede. Instead, I felt thick muscle and hard bone. When it was all over, the pain in my leg and shoulder was gone. No, it was still there, but it didn't feel like my own pain. It was like I was watching myself on top of Serica from a distance. But when I took my hands off her neck, that feeling disappeared, and everything else came flooding back. Serica's eyes had rolled up into her head, and her tongue was sticking out of her mouth. I felt an unpleasant wetness in my underwear. It was her blood, from where I'd sat on her. The blood was pouring out from the gash in her stomach. Shinjo is not gonna like this. Serica wasn't moving anymore. Did I kill her? Did I strangle her to death? You didn't even use her power. I suddenly felt the urge to vomit. Why? What was I doing on top of Serica? Why were my hands covered in blood? That sound again. My head hurt. My field of vision was red. My heart was pounding hard, and under me was the body of the girl I'd created. I cradled my head in my bloody hands. It hurt so much it felt like it was going to burst. My eyes hurt too. Everything was turning red. Suddenly, my vision cleared. The lights above the stage seemed impossibly bright, like the sun at the end of a tunnel. There was a pain in my eyes. I reached up my hand. I reached up my hand, and my fingers were covered in pink tears. And we've been there before. And then I realized Serica wasn't here. My fingers weren't covered with blood. I twisted my neck to look at my shoulder. My clothes weren't even cut. There wasn't a single wound on my leg either. But how could that have happened? Were we being mind-controlled the whole time? But that wouldn't give us delusions, would it? What was going on? I was sitting on the ground alone by the seats near the entrance.
ひでえやつだな。そんな男に育てた覚えはねえぞ。
That's a good line. Brought that up a few times. I leaped up to my feet. Okay.
父さん
That explains the weird sci-fi sounds. So he's been projecting something? I wonder if he even is a psychic, or if he had to use this for his mind control, because wasn't the whole thing with his experiment creating psychics? So how could he have been one at the start, right? Maybe he was using this the whole time. Dad was up on the stage. He was standing in the center like the lead singer at a musical, and at his feet... Yeah, this is what I thought would be the case the first time. But we're not going to get our answers from her, are we? Sarika, the girl I'd thought I'd just killed, was lying at his feet. There was no blood on her clothes and the cut on her stomach hadn't been torn open. But she must have been unconscious because she wasn't moving.
こいつは妄想のお前に殺されそうになっても一切抵抗しなかったぞ。いじらしいじゃないか。
In her delusions? I suddenly understood what was going on. Mind control, well... But when?
まさか劇場に入った時にはもう
I suspect we were. When I came inside, I felt a sharp pain and my vision had blurred for a moment. When I tested my powers with the lollipop, was I already under a spell? The pain and heat had felt so real, but it was all an illusion. But I could still feel the sensation of wringing Sarika's neck. Yeah, that was brutal.
あのままこの子に殺されてりゃ、お前のここも壊れてたはずなんだがな。
Dad tapped his own heart.
逆に殺しちまうってのはどうだよ、タクラ。女に手を挙げる男はモテねえぞ。
That is, like, kind of amusing that we, like, broke his delusion. He probably genuinely didn't expect that. Hearing Dad talk in the same tone he always did was almost enough to get me to let my guard down. But this wasn't the man I knew. The man on the stage wasn't the Dad I knew.
なんだあの機械
I took a good look at it. Dad was holding some kind of backpack and I could see some kind of device inside.
何を背負ってるんだ
Can I just telekinese that? Can I just break his device? Dad was wearing a piece of headgear that connected to it. And the long cylindrical machine he was holding was connected to it by a cord.
そうか
If he had psychic powers like we did, then he had to have one too. That was Dad's D-sword. Whoa. But why did he have it? I thought that those powers only appeared in brains that were still developing during the earthquake.
これまでの研究によれば、脳がまだ発達段階で活発に活動している若い人間。その中でも脳への負荷が非常に高い事象を経験した者だけに能力の発現が見られる。
Right, so this is probably an artificial thing. That's what Kunosada had said.
ああ、これか。
Dad saw what I was looking at and tapped his backpack with the D-sword.
すげえだろ。俺たちの研究成果の一つさ。俺みたいな普通の人間でもギガロマニアックスと似たような能力が持てる。
Yeah, see? Called it.
こいつはある装置の端末でな。その装置ってのは以前ここにあったんだが、ちょっとトラブっちまって。おかげであの地震だ。ひでえ目にあった。
You know, as dark as this can get, do you think I could use my psychic powers just on his heart? Or on his brain? Do you think I could just, like, end this right now? Dad sounded like a child whose favorite toy had been broken. It was clear he didn't care at all about the people who died or whose lives had been ruined during the earthquake.
そのせいで俺らもリストラされちまうしよ。金もね、人もいねえで組み立て直すのに6年もかかっちまった。委員会のバカども。
So that was how he'd been able to do that to Ito? And how he'd been able to kill Yui. I felt a mix of rage, sorrow, and hate. All the feelings were so strong I wanted to scream.
はい、お前のことを何とかすりゃまた研究に戻れるからな。
It was as if he was picking just the right words to make me even angrier.
正直ちょっと焦ったぜ。あの世のやつ一人でここへ来やがったからよ。お前が来なきゃ話にならねえし、めんどくせえことになったと思ってたんだが。
I'm actually surprised. After all of his careful planning, he was like, "Oh, Sarika, can you bring Miyashiro so we can kill him?" Of course she wasn't going to. I can't believe he ever thought that she would have just brought us. He looked down at her and poked her with the artificial D-sword. She still didn't move. It couldn't be. Was Sarika...
ん？死んでるぞ。当然だろう。
Yeah, obviously. She was gonna kill him. Funny, ain't it? He seemed to say.
思考誘導をかけられて妄想の中で戦わされてるって気づいたんだな、こいつ。最後、ディソードを引っ込めて、お前に殺される瞬間まで抵抗一つしなかった。どこまでお前のことが大事なんだか。
He kicked her hard enough that she turned over.
やめろ。
それにしてもお前すごかったな。ノノを殺された恨みに取りつかれてるからよ。それをちっとブーストしてやったんだ。そしたら情けも容赦もなくぶっ殺したもんな。お前もどこまでノノが大事なんだか。
I could feel my whole body getting hot. Stop it. Don't say Nono's name. Not with that face, not with that voice.
何考えてんだよ。
あ？
The way Dad's expression didn't change at all only made me madder. Did he really not understand? We'd all lived together for years, right? We'd come here as a family, hadn't we?
ユウトとウキはいなくなったあんたのことを心配してる。
なんだ、お前まだあいつらに言ってなかったのかよ。
ユイだってずっとあんたを信頼してた。それに
And Nono.
きっかけはタクルのリハビリの手伝いをしていた時に父さんに言われた言葉。独学なのにやるじゃないか、なかなかだぞという一言でした。きっと父親というのはそういうものなんでしょう。父さんが作った家のルール、私は好きでした。ありがとう。くれぐれも飲みすぎには注意してください。
信じてたんだ。大切な家族だって。なのに何考えてたよ。
My words echoed off the walls of the theater and came back to me again and again. And then I realized that I was the same way. I believed in Dad too, from the bottom of my heart. But he... Dad chuckled and scratched his head like I'd seen him do many times before. It was the same thing he'd done when Nona was scolding him at home.
タクルよ、お前なんか楽しいことってあるか？
は？
なんかあんだろう、面白いと思うこと。それがなきゃ人間なんてやってらんねえだろうが。
What was he talking about? That wasn't what I'd asked.
なんでユイを殺した？ノノを殺した？
ん？ゆいをやったのはお前の友達だし、ノノをやったのはこいつだろうがよ。
うるさい。
おお、怖え。
What the hell was so funny? I clenched my hands into fists, my grip so tight in my rage that my nails dug into my skin.
あんたどうしてこんなことできるんだ。おかしいだろ。
何怒るなって。今言ったろ。楽しまなきゃダメだ。
What the hell does that mean, though?
俺はな、お前に期待してたんだよ。人間一人リアルブートしちまうくらいぶっ壊れてたからな。どこまでいけるか、どこまで狂えるか楽しみにしてた。
Yeah, keep in mind, there were parts earlier in this playthrough where it looked like we could go to some kind of gigalomaniac bad end where we wanted to get more powerful and do what we wanted. We just didn't pursue that path, I guess.
ああ、
お前みてえなギガロマニアックスが好きなことを好きなだけやるようになったら本当にすげえんだぜ。この世界すらめちゃくちゃにできちまう。面白え、たまんねえ。それを観測して計算して理論を組んでまた実験して、そのループの先にどんなもんが現れるのか俺は見てみてえな。ワクワクしねえか、タクル。
Dad kept using the same voice he'd always used at home, but I wasn't hearing a word. The anger inside me just kept building.
とにかくよ、どんな時でも自分が面白いと思うことに従っとけ。これは父親代わりの人生訓ってやつだ。
父親だと？あんたなんか父親じゃない。
I screamed, but Dad kept smiling.
とにかくな、俺にとっちゃギガロマニアックス研究は最高だ。こんなに楽しいこと他に存在しねえ。これがお前の質問への答えだ。
そんな。
That was the only reason? The only reason he'd worked for the committee. The only reason he'd done those horrible experiments in the basement.
ユイやノノや伊藤たちをあんな目に合わせたの、それだけのために。
だから何回言ったらわかんだよ。面白えだろ、その方が。
お前。
The next thing I knew, I was running. The D-sword appeared in my hand instantly. Wasn't it bluish teal before? It had no weight, but I could feel it was there. I listened to the blades roar as I ran down the corridor, but he's using a machine, so... I swung it upward at the bastard on the stage. This is weird. There was a high-pitched noise and a brilliant light, and I stopped. My hand went numb for a second. The mechanical D-sword had blocked my swing. Dad's muscles bulged like thick ropes as he swung his giant D-sword down at me. I barely managed to block it, but the impact knocked me back into the front row seats. There was a sharp pain in my arm. It had been cut a little. It was a delusion before, but this time real blood was running down my arm. If we're gonna use psychic powers, now's the chance, dude.
おいおい、お前の腕力で俺とチャンバラする気か?
Dad didn't move a step. He raised the giant D-sword onto his shoulders. His huge body was at least 185 centimeters tall, and he towered over me from the stage like a wall.
ま、 たまには息子と遊んでやるか。娘ばっかり相手にしてちゃかわいそうだしな。
Once in a while.
ほら、こっちに来いよ。観客がしたい一つってのは物足りないけどな。
Then he kicked Serica's unmoving body once more. I felt anger, but also an indescribable despair. What was I doing here? I'd come to find out the truth from Serica, but I'd killed her myself. There was no reason for me to be here anymore. So didn't that mean there was no reason to try and fight Dad? No, it wouldn't even be a fight. I'd probably just get myself killed. So maybe... When Serica had cut open my leg before, it had only been an illusion. I could run to the exit. If I caught him off guard, I could escape. Maybe. But... Again, I have telekinesis. I could break his machine from here, right? Or at least lift the head thing off of him? I went forward. I hadn't done any real exercise since my physical therapy 6 years ago. A vision of Nono and Yui flashed in my mind, and for some reason I saw Serica smiling like she used to do when we were in the newspaper club.
どうした？早く舞台に上がれ。客が退屈してるぞ。
When I looked at him, I suddenly had an idea in the corner of my mind. Oh, don't tell me we're gonna do it! I remembered what he'd said, that the machine on his back was what gave him his power. Uh-huh. That he was an artificial gigolomaniac. Then what if I could get rid of that machine? Yeah, like he's going against a pretty bad opponent for this. Like Raika could have taken him out with pyrokinesis, I could take him out with my ability to move anything. Again, we could go for the machine, but couldn't I just snap his neck? I don't know if we're allowed to do that, I don't know the rules of this game, but couldn't I? Like Avatar The Last Airbender's bloodbending, you could just do whatever you want. I stood and climbed up onto the stage. The lights shone down upon my head. I could hear a non-existent crowd screaming for my death from the empty seats. I readied the D-sword. My hand still felt a little numb.
おお、主役っぽいぞ、タクル。それでいい。
I took a step to the side, trying to look as natural as possible. Yeah, if. He could also mind control me, he's not just gonna let me get it to his machine. Why are we trying to physically get to his machine? By moving to the side, I was able to see part of the device on his back. I hit him with my power as hard as I could. Okay. Dad heard a noise behind him and turned around. If we take that machine off, his D-sword is just gone. I had a clear view of the machine. I concentrated harder and hit him with more of my power. Dad howled like a wild animal and swung his D-sword. But I didn't stop. It said I actually got nervous. It said he howled like a wild animal, but the way he read his line, it sounded like, "Aw, man, you're inconveniencing me." I was like, oh no. As long as I can destroy that machine. That's a new one.